Hey everyone, it's been a minute. Going to break down the last month or so of podcast news and look forward to 2023.
And now, a look at what's trending in the podcast world and how it can help your show. It's the Jag Show Podcast.
First, a programming note. Yes, I have pod faded with this show a little bit, and that's largely because I've been dedicating a lot of time to a passion project of mine, a show called WJPZ at 50. It celebrates 50 years of the radio station at my alma mater, Syracuse University. We are releasing interviews with alumni every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday through the beginning of March in our annual reunion banquet. After that, show's going to slow to a once-a-week cadence, and I'll be able to refocus on this show and other areas of my podcast production business. Thank you, by the way, for PodNews and Podcast Business Journal for the mentions. Okay, on to the news. What about video podcasts? I'm asked this all the time. A new study from Cumulus and Westwood and Signal Hill Insights show that 28% of podcast listeners want to watch video of their podcast. 29% want the video playing in the background. And this changes a bit by format, of course, like true crime, for example. That's probably best audio only. But here's my key takeaway. 43% of listeners, that's almost half, prefer audio only. My position on this hasn't changed. I'm a radio guy by trade, so I'm always audio first. A podcast goes where video can't, in the car, walking the dog, and more. And now YouTube is huge for podcast discovery, but you can get all that SEO benefit with Google owning YouTube by uploading your audio to YouTube with just a static image or moving waveform or even auto-generated captions. Make sure you have good show notes and a transcription of your content if at all possible. But don't feel the need to shoot video of your podcast. To me, the ROI on your time investment just isn't there. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Jag, aren't you doing a video version of this very podcast? Well, yeah, but only because it's very short. If this thing were 30 minutes long, no way I'd be shooting and editing this video. Speaking of YouTube, they've put out a 67-page guide to podcasting as they dive deeper into the industry. If you got some time, you can check out the link in today's show notes. Podcast hosting app Anchor seems to be losing a little bit of market share. Now, I've long been concerned about Anchor, its connection to Spotify, and the murkiness around who really owns your content. Remember, free is never really free. Anchor, however, has announced an audio enhancement tool that'll clean up your audio in noisy environments. Add this to the existing studio sound feature in Descript, and AI audio enhancement tool in beta from Adobe Podcasts, and podcast audio is going to get much better in 2023. If you are going to use these tools, though, however, proceed with caution. They aren't perfect, and unless you check through them or employ a professional editor, you can get some weird stuff in your enhanced audio. Spatial audio could be the next big audio tech breakthrough. Theoretically, if you're listening to a podcast with headphones on, you could hear the conversation from different angles depending on how you move your head. The New York Times has a website demo of this. I think it's going to be a couple years before this is commonplace, but this is cutting-edge stuff and it's pretty cool. Again, link in today's show notes. There seems to be a growing sentiment in podcasting about removing email addresses from the RSS feed. That's the back-end info of your show where Apple and Spotify get all your information. Up until now, you needed an active email address to verify ownership of your podcast in Apple, Spotify, and other places. But with the rise of two-factor authentication, that may no longer be needed. Why the pushback against email addresses? Well, the inordinate amount of spam that you get from every bot on the planet as a podcast owner. You think you have it bad? Try being the email on the RSS feed of 25 or so client podcasts. It is a daily pain that I incur, so my clients don't have to. You're welcome. New research shows that podcast listeners are okay with content that's, shall we say, not squeaky clean. The reason seems to be they've sought out a particular show. So for the most part, they know what they're getting into as somebody swears or something. This is as opposed to something broadcast over a television network or an FM radio station. I will say, however, though, mark your episode as explicit if someone does swear. It keeps our evil lord and masters at Apple happy. Plus, it is a nice courtesy to give your listeners. However, explicit content and offensive content can be two very different things. Tom Webster has a great article on brand safety as it relates to podcasters and advertisers in a column on Sounds Profitable, linked in today's show notes. And finally, I do leave you with some good news today. Adnan Syed, the wrongly convicted subject of that huge podcast Serial, he's got a job now that he's out of jail. Georgetown University has hired him to work with their prison reform initiative. I'll give credit where credit is due to Georgetown, even as a Syracuse grad. Later.
The most popular ways to grow a podcast are recommendations of friends and family. So share this episode with someone you know. And for any questions you have about podcasts, find Jag online at jagindetroit.com.